Current events, developing stories,
Tough questions.
your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.
South Africa Report, of course, onto this now. Let's look at an issue that has been front of mind, certainly for the president, as he's appointed a special envoy to try and bring the rest of the continent back on side, following, of course, anti-migration protests, rhetoric and violence in South Africa. And it has certainly disturbed relations with a number of African partners. And is it working? Dr. Kingsley Makhubela is a former diplomat, so he knows all about these things. Always appreciate you and having you on the show. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thanks, Bongani. Good morning to you.
The president has taken this extraordinary step of appointing the International Relations and Cooperation Minister, Ronald Lamola, to be his special envoy to the rest of the continent. He's already had high-level meetings in Nigeria and Ghana. I suppose, firstly, let's just sort of take a step back. There's a very big difference between rhetoric and sentiment that might be whipped up by people on the streets on social media versus conversations that ought to take place between governments at a diplomatic level.
Absolutely correct, Bongani. You know, there are diplomatic sensitivities that I think should have been better nuanced. You know, if you send a special envoy to West Africa, you don't start in Ghana, you start in Nigeria. I think the Nigerian reaction now, I seem to think, is informed by the fact that they said, why would South Africa start with Ghana and not start with us? That's why the president refused, apparently, to see Minister Lamola in his meeting. And I think they are saying they want to de-escalate, and yet their actions are telling you they are escalating, because a special envoy cannot be accredited to a minister of state who is a deputy minister who received Minister Lamola there. So the message, they are sending mixed messages coming from Nigeria. You're getting same mixed messages coming from Ghana, because now apparently there's an effort to try to sue the South African government, which is unprecedented in any diplomatic action.
How much is this all about politics? Because one of the things that's going to be very difficult for this special envoy is to walk the tightrope of saying the government, the South African government, of course, condemns xenophobia, whilst at the same time the president himself has admitted to the concerns that have been raised by a number of the people who've expressed this anti-migrant sentiment, even though the experts will tell you that much of the details of what they argue about are not borne out by the facts.
Absolutely, Bongani. You know, the challenge that South Africa is having is that you find the rhetoric that is coming from political leaders on this matter that is not in line with what the government desires to do. For instance, you get mixed messages that are coming from the same government. Certain political parties who feel uncomfortable, they would wear their political hat even though they are part of the coalition and raise concerns. Members of the coalitions are not talking with the same tone on this. On the other hand, if you listen to the rhetoric coming from Nigeria and Ghana particularly, let's take Nigeria. They have a gentleman called Femi Fani Koyode, who's a high commissioner designate. He's been appointed and confirmed by South Africa. If you look at his Twitter space, the level of rhetoric and false information that he works on, I mean, he's looking at, he's tweeting about things that are actually, I know these are false. So you find the fake news and the deep fake are going to play havoc in terms of this. But at the political level, both countries, I don't think there's a concerted effort to de-escalate. I mean, I was worried about the address of the president at the Pan-African Parliament, specifically on this matter. I don't think he should walk that road. He should indicate what they are doing in terms of the laws of the country. And the Nigerians and the Ghanaians really taking this into the AU Assembly of Heads of State. I think that's what the special envoy should have dealt with. To say this matter, SADC is seized with, let it not go to the AU.
That's part of why I started the conversation by saying, hang on a minute, surely at a diplomatic level, at an intergovernmental level, we shouldn't be influenced by inflammatory rhetoric from the streets or even social media. And that seems to be exactly the point.
That's where we are, because this thing is playing to political constituencies on both sides. South Africans are preparing now for the coming local government election. The Nigerians, because there's emotions that are evoked in the country, they are playing to that. Same as the Ghanaians. So they are missing the strategic thrust of really creating a better diplomatic relation between the two countries. I don't think as South Africa, this country can afford to have any tension with Ghana and Nigeria. These are actually shining paths in many respects in terms of supporting South Africa in the past, and the South African business in those areas are really thriving. So creating Pan-African a business institution is what is at the strategic level of this relationship between the two countries.
But what I'm trying to understand is it because, as you say, there are political considerations domestically in both South Africa and West Africa, or is it that we are mucking up our communications around this? I mean, one of the things I thought was noteworthy was the fact that the special envoy, Lamola, raised these flashpoints, if you will, as part of the reasons we've seen these tensions. He mentioned that so-called Igbo king in the Eastern Cape. He also mentioned that foreign nationals have a role in organized crime in South Africa. And, of course, these hijacked buildings in the inner city of Johannesburg and Pretoria. And he says that's where that sentiment comes from. How would that be received in places where he's trying to cool tensions?
Bongani, what South Africa has lost, you're quite correct, is the strategic communication around this issue. The issue that the whole world is concerned about, it's not all those issues, hijacking building crimes. It's a perception that vigilantes group have taken over the function of the state, are the ones who are enforcing this. They're the ones that are really fueling this rhetoric that we see, this anti-foreigners. And the state seems to be paralyzed about it. That's what is at the core of this. No one questions South Africa's legitimate authority to take people who don't have necessary documents out of the country. That's allowed. That's not the issue. The South African government should be focusing on how they are dealing with these vigilantes. And we're scoring our own goals as South Africans, because some of the things that you're seeing coming out of the country, really they are humiliating to fellow Africans. And I don't think I identify with some of those vigilante sentiments.
Dr. Kingsley Makhubela, appreciate your time, former diplomat and
Thanks,
director at RiskRecon.